of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Note for the record that all council members are present.
Move adoption.
First, we need to adopt the agenda.
Move adoption.
No modifications, we're okay?
No.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I want to report one thing. We had a closed session, which is still underway, and we will resume that, and no decision, so we will resume that after the meeting is over. So we've...
This is in regards to the city attorney.
Right. It says that on the...
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have this wonderful presentation to make. Thank all the people who are sponsors for the Concerts in the Park. And we have this system that Caroline has kind of put together. And I will be moving down to this other mic and then giving the certificates to those people who are here and mentioning those who are not able to make it. And then I guess the idea is, Caroline, that they come up and get their certificate, but then they stay here and grab hold of the banner at some point. And then when everybody gets here, then the council comes down and we get a picture with everybody holding the banner, right? That's the plan? Caroline? Yeah. Okay, good. So I will come down and start the individual presentations, and please come up as I call your name and company. Okay. Okay, so the first is a platinum sponsor, and it's Universal Paragon Corporation. We've heard of those. And is Jonathan here? Don't see him. Okay, he's supposed to be here. Yeah. All right, well, we'll give it to him eventually. Okay. Then we have gold sponsors. And so the ones that are horizontal are not likely to be here. Is that true? Nobody here from Buy Right? No, okay. They're one of the sponsors. What about William Spencer and Sons Incorporated? One of the sponsors. Okay, now the next one's supposed to be here, right? Okay. We'll find out. Oh. This is to, let's see. Wow. This is for Jonathan Powers of Homewood Suites. All right, great. And I got something to report here too, huh? Okay, and it's Jonathan Powers and Jennifer Carrot, right? Okay, and I got something else to add here. I've given a little note. So it says here, as a part of his donation, Jonathan is, what is this?
Complimentary room.
Complimentary rooms. It looked like camping. I thought, wait a minute, that's not what they do at Homewood Suites. Yeah. 3 rooms at his hotel for the band members. Oh, right, yeah. Which includes a full buffet breakfast and shuttle service from the community park. Well, that's very nice. So, thank you very much. So hang around here. We're going to have you. Yeah. Okay. So the next is Kingdom Pipelines, and Brendan Murphy's supposed to be here, also with his son Tiernan. Is that right? Not here yet? Oh, what's the matter with him? Okay. So we start on time when the TV is working. Okay. Well, Rich Borgello of Recology is here. I think I saw him in the audience. Yeah. And your
John Glove.
Oh, John Glaub, okay, all right. Come around, I'll shake your hands. Thank you very much. Thank you. Here's your accommodation. Stay here for the banner holding. All right. Okay. Oh, I know this person too. Vince Fernacci of South San Francisco Scavengers. Yeah, all right. Is Paul Formosa's here? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Both come up. All right. Oh, Ron Fernacci's also here? Wow. Okay. That's great. Yeah, we need a lot of strong arms. Okay. All right. Okay, now we move on to, that's okay. Now we move on to the silver sponsors. And is Bill here? Yeah, Bill Del Chiaro. I don't see him. Is Bill Del Chiaro here? No? Yeah? No? Okay. We all know him. Okay, Brisbane Hardware. All right. How about Doug Ryder from CSG Consultants? All right. Who is that guy? I've known this guy for a long time, you know, and he's turned gray during that time.
So how do they hold their
Right?
thing?
Okay. Here's somebody else I know. This is the Glassman Schillinger family, and I believe Stuart is over there. Yeah, no choice.
No choice.
No choice. Thank you.
You're wearing that mortician's outfit again.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay. Then I got Tamara Palmer Heath of the Golden State Lumber. Thank you very much, Golden State. Okay, Howard Wheeler of Laurel Landscaping. Okay, thank you. Now we go to the bronze sponsors. Is Dan and Kelly Carter here? All right, Dan Carter's. Yeah, all right, that's for sure.
Gotta hold that end up there, Dan.
Okay, now we got Linda and Bill Detmer of Detmer Associates. I don't see the end of it there. How about Al Bainfield of Garden Chapel? There we go.
Say no to that.
So is anybody here from Integrated Resources? No, okay. Thank them. How about Julie Banks from Julie's Brisbane Liquor and Deli? Julie? I saw Jerry Cool out there from Cool Designs. Yeah. Okay, I don't see Laurie and Ray Liu. I know them, but I don't see them. Okay, thanks, Laurie and Ray. Anybody here from Mamma Mia Pizza? No? Okay. Thank them. Oh, okay, pizza's good. All right.
We got the pizza in the back.
How about Raphael Meza from Melissa's Taqueria? Ron Davis, I don't see. No one else is here? Okay, well, I'll just mention who they are. Who else we got here? We got Sue Cochran of Sue Cochran Construction. And we got, Tim Chang from the Humboldt Tree Service, everybody knows. And we got Jerry Lamy from the West Coast Farmers Market Association. And that's all I have. Now we're going to take the group picture, but I'd like the council to come down so we can all fit in here somehow or other.
I don't think I'll be able to see over.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to go on the end or something. Yeah, right. What do you suggest, Caroline? Yeah, right. Where do you want to go, Clark? Yeah, right. Clark towers over everybody.
Thank you, guys and ladies.
Thank you very much.
Glad to see you. Good to see you, Ray. How are you? Headed next to Big Romeo again.
Fourth time.
Good to see you.
I don't look anything like that.
Thanks for working.
That's right.
Okay. 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 What's the first date?
July
26th. Okay, should point out that the concerts that these wonderful people have sponsored start on July 26th at 5:45 in the community park and continue through August. So that'll be a fun opportunity for the community. Wouldn't happen without all the sponsors, of course. Okay. Always nice to have start with a kind of a win-win situation. Oh, we got to turn the mic around? Probably picking me up, huh? Okay. At least it wasn't whistling. Okay, now we move on to oral communications number 1, and I have one request. Michelle?
Michelle Salmon, Brisbane resident. I want to talk about dirt. It's getting higher and higher. I was gone for a couple of weeks, and I came back, and I was surprised at how much higher it got while I was gone. And I don't think we have a resolution yet, and I'm kind of wondering when we're going to have a resolution of, like, setting a place that we measure from. I say Bay Shore Freeway, since that's been the most consistent, probably, level over the last several years, and that's generous because Tunnel Road's kind of sank. And let's get on with it and enforce the rules. I'm really, really sick of how high the dirt's getting without. And then there's still a lot of dust. I really noticed tonight when I was coming home, a lot of dust coming off of that, a lot of dust coming off Golden State Lumber, and a lot of dust coming off the quarry. So, a lot of dirt. Thanks.
Okay, I will see. Yeah, John Sawicki's here. So what's the update on that, if any?
There are sort of two components. One, as we talked about, there's a extension for that permit, the interim use permit that's in process. And I think as we indicated last time, it's probably be about the fall until we actually get to hearing on that permit. But subsequent, or since the last meeting the council had and this issue was raised, the city engineer and I did have a conversation with the property owners regarding this particular issue of benchmarking the soil heights. And we have some proposals, and when we have some resolution of that, we'll be glad to report it back to the council. But we did have a discussion last week on that, and to address that ongoing concern about soil height.
Any chance of coming back before we go on break, which would be June 17th? Feasible or not?
I'll touch base with the applicant and see what kind of progress they make. If they have progress and we have something to report, yes, we'll be glad to do that.
If I may, Mr. Wright, I have a question for John.
Sure.
So, John, when how do they mitigate the dust when the piles of dirt are so high? It just seems that might be difficult to to keep it from blowing away. So
I don't know if the height is sort of a controlling factor. They have requirements of stopping work, watering, other sort of activities that are supposed to occur based on the meteorological condition and wind speeds.
yeah.
I don't know that the pile height makes it any more susceptible at a given wind speed, and those requirements apply whether it's a pile of dirt 2 feet tall or 20 feet tall to
Yeah.
what they're supposed to do.
You're right. I'm just thinking about like the mitigating it by spraying the water. I mean, if it's at a certain height that's easier to get to than say something that's really high. And I don't know what the procedure is to make sure that the top part of those mounds of dirt are watered properly. But it would be great when you come back to provide some information on how they do that.
And through the mayor, just so the people in the audience are clear, we're talking about the Bayland Soil Project, pile of dirt. And while I would love the community director to come back when they have a resolution, I would love to hear a progress report before that, whether or not there's a resolution or an agreement between the parties or not. I think that at least, if not the public made aware of it, that the council be made aware of any possible negotiating factors. Thank you.
I just had one other thing to add on. The tower out there that was used to measure the wind speed, doesn't that have graduated marks on it? And I guess my question is, if have certain heights on that, or we could put certain heights on it. Seems like that's a base area where you can take some transit shots to use story poles or something like that. Not for us to do, but I mean for the applicant. It seems like that would be a base start, and I'm looking to the city engineer to see if you think that's feasible or not. I don't know.
I think that's one of several ways it could be done, sir. I think a slightly more traditional approach that I had thought about was that we go out there on the site with them and we find a piece of land that we agree is at a relatively same condition that it's been, perhaps like the bank of the drainage channel there, and establish an elevation benchmark there, and then they can just take shots because the site is open enough that you could, transit from there 360 degrees and nail the piles pretty easily. So, and I'm sure there's probably a handful of other ways that a competent surveyor would tell us could be, useful for us in restricting the pile heights.
Okay. All right.
So I think what I'm hearing is that, whatever you come up with, it should be on the agenda for the 17th. Okay. All righty, thank you. Anybody, any other oral communications? Okay. Then we move on to the consent calendar. I know I'd like to remove item E. Any other removals?
Move approval of A through D and F.
F, right.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so what we approved was a couple of sort of pro forma reports to grand jury comments, establishing the continuation of the Sierra Point Lighting Landscape District assessments, grant, FEMA grant, and also advice about using certain rat and mouse poisons that are opposed by EPA.
And if we could, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge that our chief of police and city engineer on their great responses to the grand jury. Thank you.
Okay, so I removed item E, which is the agreement with the Millbrae Community Television. Maybe might get just a quick summary of what that's all about. And I had two questions which I gave to the city manager, and maybe Caroline already has an answer to them.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. So we have had an agreement, a vendor agreement with Millbrae Community Television since 2002. The agreements are for 2-year cycles, and they've been extended. It's been extended a number of times. And as you can see in the attachment, that the current agreement is expiring July 5th. And everything in the terms and conditions of the agreement stay the same. Exhibit A that was attached at the end of the agreement has some nominal price increases, and those are mostly revolving around the operator cost to have a operator manning the council chambers TV room during the council meetings and operating the 3 cameras, and also for station management services on a monthly basis. So those both went up by $20. The cost for an operator is now $410 from $380, and the cost of the station management went to $400 from $380. And basically that was what was in the staff report. Currently, to have cable programming, council programming, and live streaming is a total of $34,628.04. So there's a 6.1 increase with those increases that are stated in Exhibit A to $35,708.04. But because those 3 areas have a budgeted amount of $37,000 for the 13-14 budget, there currently does not need to be any changes made to the budget. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, so the two questions that I had, and maybe the city manager wants to weigh in on this, but the first question that I had was just an obvious one, that the contact person in the contract is yourself, and we know that you're going to be off for a while, and I wanted to make sure who the backup contact person was, which should be noted here, and so do you want to answer that first?
Person to my immediate right will be the contact person in the absence of Caroline, that city
Okay,
clerk, Sherry.
so the city
We'll
clerk.
put that in there.
so-
Can you point to right?
My right.
Okay, so it would be nice to sort of get that into the agreement, just so
I'll
you
seem
know
like a better choice.
that that's clear. And then the second concern that I had, it says in this contract that, you know, they're supposed to be responsive, you know, both day and night if there are problems. But one of the things that's become obvious over a couple of years now is it's very difficult to figure out what to do when we discover that things aren't working. And like, for instance, we had the other day, things were working here and you were watching it streaming on TV, but the problem was it wasn't on channel 27. So the problem was between here and channel 27. And then the question becomes, if people are watching or trying to watch, you know, where do they call? What do we do? How do we fix it? And this has come up a couple of times in the past, because it's not the first time that's happened. And so it wasn't clear how we can contact somebody or get a mitigation of the problem when these things come up? Are people at home, what do they do? Do they call someplace? Or how do we fix something when clearly the TV transmission ain't working, particularly for those people, and that's most people who would be watching it on Channel 27?
Right, so the city manager shared that concern with me, and we've been talking with various staff members, and the best solution that we thought of so far was to drop a phone line into this room. That would be, well, there is a plug for phones right behind where the city clerk sits, and so we would just have a physical phone next to the computer at the city clerk's desk, and if someone were watching, or whether it's a live stream or Channel 27 on Comcast, and they see some audio or visual difficulties, then they can phone in a number which we would heavily publicize through all of our communication channels. And that would be a dedicated number for that phone. It would never change. And so the person would, whoever's staffing the meeting, whether it's Planning Commission, City Council, Parks and Recreation, or Open Space, they would see the light flashing. We don't want to disrupt the meeting per se, but we do want that light to be flashing, so we'll turn down the audio. And whenever incoming calls come in, it just flashes red on the line. So the person staffing the meeting would pick it up and have a headset too if they want to leave the room and take the call. And they can come back into the room, and oftentimes it's like a button that needs to be pressed or a cable that needs to be pulled out and plugged back in. A very simple fix, which was what happened at the last city council meeting. And so if a staff person can't solve the issue, then MCTV is on call. It is in the vendor agreement, as you pointed out, under operator responsibilities. And Randy Sahai from MCTV, she's been always very responsive, and she's here tonight, and if she's unavailable, then someone from MCTV will be made available, so that we'll always have a live body to answer if staff can't remedy the problem. So that's what we were thinking. That seemed to be the minimal cost too, because we're looking into having a cell phone, but that would be a monthly incurred cost, $50, if we have a ready phone that wasn't being used, and we would activate that. So the cost we're going to look into for having the line dropped into this room be a few $100s, but at least it'd be a one-time cost.
Okay,
Couldn't,
Jerry?
wouldn't it be feasible to have an extension phone that plugged into the regular switchboard, and you press whatever extension when you'd call City Hall, and it would ring to a dedicated extension, say in this office or another office, and you wouldn't need to add a phone line? You would just have to have this dedicated as an extension.
Right, we would have to transfer an existing phone to ring in this room so that extension would pick up, because we don't want to give out a currently used extension.
No, but I'm sure there's access in your switchboard capabilities to have another extension number on our switchboard. I can't imagine every,
Switchboard.
or,
We just have, we have a series of individual numbers. So I think that's the reason why you got to have a phone, an actual phone with an actual number.
Yeah, we thought about bringing in a phone of the nearest located cubicle and just having that physically brought into the room by whoever's staffing the meeting. But it just kind of involves first that person's phone being used, and also the staff person needing to put it back, and loose wires. So we thought just, okay.
That becomes very difficult. If a person's troubleshooting something and you got people calling a line and they're supposed to answer it at the same time, it's just not going to work. And I can tell you just from a technical experience, that doesn't work at all, because you won't get nothing resolved. All you'll be doing is answering questions. Like, as soon as I get off the phone, I can get to the problem.
no, I know, and I've been at home trying to watch a meeting and had a problem, and was emailing to different people that were either in the meeting or in the audience, trying to see who was actually looking at their email during the meeting, and usually I found someone.
And maybe we can have staff get
but-
with the with the provider and maybe come up with some ideas of doing something where it really doesn't take so much away from troubleshooting the problem, the individual, because I mean, it's not like, we have a huge staff to do stuff like that. It's a one-person operation, and that's, the most cost-effective. It's just maybe have him go back and come up with some ideas.
I think that's actually what Caroline and Randy did this afternoon, and I don't know if Randy wants to speak directly to it, but they think this is the most cost-effective, simplest sort of remedy to the problem.
Yeah, I did ask Randy if other cities that she works with has similar issues and what they've done as a solution. And she mentioned that San Mateo has a physical phone in their broadcast booth, and it takes messages too during the week. MCTV is the one who picks up those messages, but we want it to be, someone picking up during the meeting. So we thought better to have it outside where the staff is sitting and troubleshooting real time.
Because we don't always have a technical person in the booth.
Right, only for city
Only
council.
for council meetings.
Right.
So you would need it to be at the staff
Right.
dais.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think your recommendation makes sense to me. So, if the council is okay with that, I recommend it.
Fine.
Move forward with
I
that.
think so, yeah.
Hopefully, we won't use it very often.
Yeah, hopefully things
Right.
will work. And once we get this all set up, it'll work perfectly. Right?
Of course, you don't want someone to call and say, hey, can you ask this question for me?
It's not to replace oral communication.
Got any pizza? Oh, wrong number.
Okay, so I think the proposed solution, it makes sense to us, and so that'll be great. But we need to pass the extension of the agreement with Millbrae Community Television. So we'd like to make that motion.
I'll make the motion to approve item E.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, we did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have a public hearing on the weed abatement issue.
That will be me,
Okay. go
because
for it.
I did the work for the police, or for the fire department. And I need to correct it. It's not ordinance 8.5, it's municipal code chapter 8.5. What it is over the years, when we created this municipal code, it gave us the ability to put unpaid weed abatement bills onto the tax rolls. We've never done it. So this year, we decided to finally tie up loose ends and move forward through the process. I sent out letters explaining the process, along with copies of the invoices in April, with giving them more than 30 days to either pay or protest the bill, and also to let those property owners that were on this list to come to the public hearing. What you need to do tonight is approve the abatement, the weed abatement report, term it as a special assessment on those properties so that we can file it with the county, so that they will be collected along with the other tax bills. And it's just 3 properties at this point. And with that, I can answer any questions.
I have one. If you have a question, I have a question before we go to the public hearing.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'd be curious to know what the 3 properties are, if that's okay.
They were
It's on the
in
back
there.
page.
On the
Okay, got
back.
it.
It's
Okay.
here.
It's on the back page, okay.
Yeah.
Then I don't need to make that public.
I have a question about the resolution. There's a little confusion to me. If you come down the bottom where it says now therefore be it resolved, there's a 1 and there's a 2. And then the 3 is sort of standing out there and the sentence is unfinished. And so what should be at the bottom there?
I will turn that over to Hal if.
You know what I'm talking about? I mean, I think it's just a line missing.
I think it's just a typo.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a line is missing,
Yeah.
at least on my copy.
More than one line.
Yeah, it could be more than
Yeah.
one, yeah, right.
Paragraph 3, I guess, got dropped from printout in the packet, how it should read. One and two is, okay, paragraph 3, at least on my draft, reads, the establishment of the solid waste collection, oh wait, I'm sorry, you're on the reso.
Right.
The establishment of the solid waste collection zones as shown on the collection zone map attached here too shall become.
No, we're on a
No.
different item.
We're on the weed abatement.
Oh, I'm sorry, the weed abatement. Okay. Oh, yeah.
City clerk's trying to go back.
Okay.
She's got it in the file.
Can we do this at a later meeting?
Well,
Well, it's supposed to be, what, there's kind of a deadline, isn't there?
yeah. How about if you move on to old business A, and then we can come back.
You come back to this?
He comes back.
Okay, so we'll come back to this item while we're checking out the language of the resolution. Okay. So fortunately, we didn't open the public hearing yet, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back to it, and we'll do old business, which is what you were starting, Hal.
I think that one is complete.
Yes, that one's okay, in terms of what we have in front of us here. So you want to explain that for us?
I'm just going back. I thought I had that file in front of me on the weed abatement, but actually, if you want to go back to the abatement, I pulled out the wrong document, the one I thought I had before. Paragraph 3, back on the weed abatement one. Says the city clerk shall transmit a certified copy of this resolution and the attached Exhibit A to the county assessor for addition to the assessment roll, period. And that's the end of the resolution.
Okay, would you read the end of number 2, which I don't have the
Number 2 says the last, let's see, where did this one leave off?
There's a sentence that starts, all laws and ordinances applicable, and then it's nothing.
Yeah, apparently the third page of the entire resolution got lost in the process. So
what's the rest?
That sentence reads, all laws and ordinances applicable to the levy, collection, and enforcement of city taxes are hereby made applicable to such special assessments. So what it's doing is simply saying that the laws that apply to the normal collection of city taxes apply to the collection of this assessment. I can bring up a copy of that page.
Okay.
And then the only other thing on that page was the signature line for the mayor and the recording of the vote. So it's missing the last sentence of paragraph 2 and all of paragraph 3.
Okay.
Basically, that page was gone.
Oh, okay. Anybody else want to see it?
No, okay.
And then the listing of properties was on a separate page, so
Yeah, I
that's
saw that.
apparently what happened.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
In the staff report, it says that we sent out a copy of outstanding invoices with the dated letter, and how was that sent? Was that sent certified mail?
Betsy's not here, but yes, they are sent certified mail.
And does that require a signature on the other end? Did they receive it?
I believe so, yeah. I think that's the whole
And
certified, yeah.
we got all those back?
Right.
That they received the letters?
Yeah.
And they still didn't pay?
Yeah, these are just, I guess, the most intransigent accounts. We worked very hard to try to clear up accounts before we get to this point, and we're down to 3 of them now.
Yeah, there are a lot of other delinquencies, but eventually, through repeated contacts, the city was able to obtain payment from them, so we are down just to 3.
Okay. Okay, any other questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, so we'll open the public hearing and see if anyone wants to speak to this issue. Not seeing
Motion to
anybody
close.
volunteering.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, so then we need to take action on Resolution 2013-23 with the full language that we've now been provided.
Can I ask a question? Sorry to be
That's okay.
a little delayed on this. You said that there were other people that we had assessed fees for and invoiced for and gotten resolved. Does the city have any mechanism for people who are low income or don't have the means to pay to make any waivers on the charges that are incurred?
I don't believe that feature is part of this particular ordinance. Probably one reason is we're dealing with hard costs here. The work is actually performed by a contractor retained by the fire department who sends the city a bill. Those bills are then forwarded to the property owners. So it's one thing if we waive something that involves a city overhead cost, but here we're talking about an out-of-pocket expense. So there's no low income or other provision of that kind built into the ordinance.
So if a resident got a weed abatement notice and had some difficulties with being able to comply, could they call the city beforehand before these
Absolutely,
costs were incurred so that, so it didn't get to this point?
Well, even when they get the bill, the city would always be prepared to work with the property owner, and if they call up and say, you know, this is a large amount, I got a big property, but, you know, I can't pay it all at one time, there are any number of arrangements that the city could work out in terms of payment and installments, and I'm sure we'd be more than prepared to do that for anyone who was in that financial circumstance.
Good to know. Thank you.
And just to add on to that, you know, the notices go out to property owners, and they're given an opportunity to take care of the problem themselves. And the only reason we get to this point is they haven't done that. And for safety reasons, we go in and have to hire a contractor to do the work. So there's really lots of opportunities for someone to raise the issue of inability to pay. And if they do, then, you know, we will certainly work with them because we want to make sure, obviously, the community's safe first, but also understand that circumstances happen and people have difficulties sometimes. We want to be sensitive to that also.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a motion on the resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll go on to old business. And Hal, you're on.
Sorry, sometimes us old retirees lose track of where we are.
You're not retired yet.
Anyhow, the amendment to the ordinance was introduced at your last meeting, and it comes back to you without any changes. The reason it's under old business is that, along with the ordinance amending the Muni Code dealing with solid waste collection to allow for the establishment of multiple zones, is a resolution by the council to, in effect, create those zones. So, resolution number 2013-14 will establish 3 separate zones. There is a map attached as an exhibit to the resolution which shows the boundaries of those zones. And that's all we're doing at this point. So the zones would have been established, but there is no separate franchise agreement that has yet been awarded for any of these zones that will come later. So this is kind of the first step toward creating multiple collection zones. And there's no requirement that each zone be awarded to a different collection company. It could be that we have 2 awarded to one, or even all 3 temporarily, but it gives the flexibility, the city the flexibility to deal with these areas separately. And as you'll see, one is all of central Brisbane plus Sierra Point, which is essentially the area currently being serviced by South San Francisco Scavenger. Then there is Industrial Way, which
And the Northeast Ridge.
And the Northeast Ridge, yes. Then there's the area around Industrial Way, which I think they also service, but This gives us the ability to award a franchise for a shorter period of time until it's determined through the Baylands development applications how that area is going to be developed and serviced. And then the third zone is all of the Baylands. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions council may have.
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
So, Hal, so currently, who is servicing the businesses that are out the Baylands, like Sierra Point Lumber?
Currently, South San Francisco Scavenger has a contract for the entire city. And under the terms of our ordinance as it now exists, there would only be one franchise agreement awarded to one company to service the entire city. So that is what we are changing. None of this will become effective until that franchise agreement either expires, which would be 2014, or if we, before that time, negotiate some different agreement with South San Francisco Scavenger. I should point out that one paragraph of the resolution let's see. Yeah, paragraph 2. Under the terms of the existing franchise agreement, the city would have to exercise an option to extend that franchise for another 10 years. So if we did nothing, it would automatically expire, but just to avoid any possible argument that we exercise the option by implication or whatever, even though it has to be in writing, paragraph 2 specifically authorizes the city manager to give notice to the existing franchise holder of the city's election not to exercise the franchise, not to exercise the extension of the franchise. So that franchise agreement that we now have will expire on February 28th, 2014. And we fully expect by that time there will have been a new agreement negotiated with South San Francisco Scavenger that will certainly cover Zone 1, maybe Zone 2 as well, but we wanted to make it very clear that we're starting fresh, and there'll be a new agreement signed, and depending where we are with the Baylands, that will be dealt with as well. So in any event, this will simply acknowledge the expiration of the existing contract. It will not award any new agreement that will come later.
Sure, and it gives the city the flexibility to, in any of the zones, but really looking at Zone 2 and 3, flexibility of however many years it feels it
Correct.
deems is necessary.
Yeah, we were really concerned about Zone 2 because that's kind of in the middle of both areas, and it could be serviced by one or the other, or one company could be servicing all of them for a period of time.
Sure.
This gives us the flexibility to vary the terms in whatever manner may seem appropriate at the time. So it'll all be coming back to you in the form of the franchise agreements, but right now we're just setting up the zones and the boundaries.
All right, thank you.
I have a couple of points, if Clark or Terry, you don't?
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question about the scavenger being considered a person rather than a company. And I'm wondering why we do that, and why can't we say authorizing that company to collect refuse throughout the entire city? It's not really a person.
I think we go back to Chapter 1 of the Muni Code. I'd have to pull it out, but there should be in there a definition of person, which includes an individual, a corporation, a partnership, a trust, any form of business entity. So person is usually defined in the municipal code context as being both an individual person as well as some form of an entity. And that term is used throughout the municipal code. In that, it's defined in that way.
It's a term of legal art.
Yeah, exactly. But there should be a definition of person. We can go back and check and make sure, but Chapter 1 of the Muni Code has some definitions in it, and hopefully we can check it if somebody wants to go online and look, but...
Yeah, it just seems strange to me, unless we are defining person very broadly.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it should be a company, not a person.
So
Go ahead.
When we're describing solid waste, our current contract includes the recycling and the paper and aluminum and the bottles and cans. And is that legally defined as garbage, rubbish, and waste matter?
There is a definition in the existing ordinance of rubbish and solid waste.
So we wouldn't need to include and recycling materials?
What page you on, Jerry?
Well, in the ordinance it's defining garbage, rubbish, and waste matter.
What page and paragraph section?
Section 1, paragraph A.
Okay.
And I know that our recycling pickup service goes hand in hand with our garbage pickup, but I didn't know if we needed to specify that as being in the zone of collections also.
Well, it is specifically addressed in the franchise agreement and will continue to be addressed. I was simply using the terms as they now appear in Chapter 824. By the way, Section 1.02.150, the municipal code defines person as any natural person, firm, association, organization, partnership, joint venture, trust, corporation, or company. Now, that definition, that chapter is intended to establish definitions that would be used throughout the code unless that term is otherwise defined in a particular section, whereas this is not. So that's the definition that would apply.
Okay, all right.
Makes sense.
That answers that question of mine. Regarding Terry's point, the 824-140 on page 2, disposal of garbage, that does refer to recycling. And it says that they have to abide by all applicable state laws.
Right.
See what I'm talking about?
In the disposal of garbage.
Right, right,
Promote recycling, but
right,
And the collection.
right.
okay, if you think that is
Then the rest,
sufficient.
as long as we got that clear, and then the rest goes into the franchise agreement.
Correct.
Yeah. But I have another question about enforcement, which is under section 6. It says, in addition to all of the public officials designated as having authority to enforce the provisions of the code, the city health officer and his or her authorized representative and the chief or acting chief of any fire protection agency. Do we have a city health officer?
County health.
It's really county, huh?
Yeah, but
So they act on our behalf.
that's also a defined term.
Okay.
In there, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, since it is the county, that means they do have the right to inspect premises wherever they are in the county?
Well, if there's a health hazard, and they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Okay. Because, their main facility, handling facility is not in Brisbane.
Well, we've had situations of properties that have a hazardous condition, and if we've gone in to do an inspection for code compliance or whatever, typically the health officer is part of that team to determine any violations of health and safety codes.
Okay, all right. Because, see, it says here that, the right to enter upon all premises, determining the sanitary conditions, ascertaining whether any provisions of this chapter have been violated. And so, I mean, it deals with health, but also with lots of other things. And so I guess it's still a little unclear to me.
Well, with the
What kind of
caveat,
authority we do or don't have?
well, that language is very common, that some public official would have the right to enter upon the property and inspect whatever. But in the absence of some clear and present emergency and hazard, the reality is that if we suspect there's a code violation or a health and safety concern, we would have to first go to court and get an inspection warrant. And that's the normal process. We would only go on the property without prior court order if there was some immediate hazard. Let's say there was an earthquake and a building is about to collapse, or there's a hillside that's falling down and emergency work has to be done. But normally, if it's a code violation, whether it's health and safety or zoning or whatever, we can go on the basis of our reasonable belief the violation exists and then go into court and get an inspection warrant. That would be the normal process.
Okay. Did you want to add anything?
No, I was just saying that the county health generally, certain regulations, I mean, they're the ones that do it. It's kind of like that bag ordinance that we
Right,
did.
right.
The enforcing agency.
Okay.
So we do have representatives here from
Yeah,
our current
they want to-
franchise provider, if they want to talk
Want
on
to
it.
weigh in on this? I guess we've finished our questions before we act. Okay, why not?
Good evening, my name is Paul Formos. I'm the CFO of the South San Francisco Scavenger Company. And the only thing I think we'd like to say is that we've look forward to working with city staff to come up with a new franchise agreement. And we look forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
I'll take questions.
you guys done a great job working with the city. Thanks.
Okay, I'll make a motion to waive the second reading of ordinance number 581.
I'll second that.
And that would be the adoption of that, right? Okay.
Okay.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, then we have the resolution, right?
Okay. Make a motion to adopt resolution number 2013-14, establishing the franchise zones for solid waste collection services.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've done it. All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Good try.
Had to throw that one there. I thought we were on a roll.
Okay, so we have new business, which we have a lot of material on, and we're going to get a very succinct staff report, right?
Yes, you are, because
Escalating.
this is the Northeast Ridge Assessment District refunding. And refunding is just a government accounting technology term for refinancing. What we've done, in 1995, we created the Northeast Ridge Assessment District back when it was three parcels with a plan to build 579 homes, but they needed to put in the infrastructure. And the way you do that is you bond out for the people who will eventually be living up there. So we bonded out in 1995. In 2001, we went through the reassessment process and to lower the rate at that time, which we did. And then we've been recently approached by a bank that said, we've got this great rate of 3.05%. Do you want to refinance? And we said, sure. So we have gone through and done the levy reassessment. You have 3 resolutions in front of you that have to be approved in order, and then we move forward from there. And I'll take any questions.
You want to talk about how much it'll save?
It will save the bond or the parcel owners anywhere from $51.25 per year to $289 per year, depending on the year and the parcel, because some of the parcels have different assessment rates depending on how much improvement was done to that particular parcel and how many parcels were developed on that from how it was broken down. So it's in the fiscal agent state, or in one of the reports, it breaks down, in the levy report, excuse me, it breaks down how the different ones are broken down and how much they save. But it's the 5125 is for the smallest, was the smallest amount for the next year. The 289 becomes the largest amount in the final year. And we did not extend the length of the bond, so it still ends at the same time.
And the total amount?
The total amount of savings will be about $190,000, which isn't a huge amount, but our thought was every little bit helps.
Okay. Great. Questions? Comments?
It's an easy decision. I think this one's an easy decision on this. And,
Okay.
I mean, going through it, I'd be more than happy to entertain a motion.
Okay,
Make a
so we've got to
motion.
we've got to pass 3 different resolutions.
Okay, a motion to approve resolution number 2013-20, adopting the intention to levy reassessments and to issue bonds for the Northeast Ridge Assessment District.
And second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve resolution number 2013-21, adopting reassessment report for Northeast Ridge Assessment District and confirming and ordering new reassessments.
Second.
All in favor, please.
Aye.
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 A motion to approve resolution number 2013-22, authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds, executing a fiscal agent agreement and an escrow agreement for the Northeast Ridge Assessment District.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Did we have any public comment that we wanted to make? I wasn't sure if there was any public that.
Nobody
Okay,
indicated it.
okay.
Yeah. We wanted to make sure that people knew how much they were going to save. Right? So, we're okay? All right, so the next item on the agenda is a continuation of the budget workshop, and I guess that's why the finance director is standing in front of us.
Yes, I will actually turn it over to the city manager and Maria, the analyst who works with the city manager on their budget. But before I do that, I wanted to go through some budget corrections that I have noticed and other people have noticed. And as I pointed out to Clark, I am actually not wearing a mortician's outfit. We saw what a mortician's outfit was. It doesn't look anything like this. Colorful tie, blue, more colorful suit.
By hell.
Moving on. So there are some corrections that we need to make into the budget document that we'll make in the final document. We're going to remove, in summary sheet 1, which is the budget resources section, we're going to remove all funds which have no entries. Basically what we do is keep the format the same year to year. So, those that don't have entries, we don't need to show on the sheet of paper. We're going to remove the rainy day fund and include that in the general fund. The reserves were already part of the general fund. So one of the changes that will occur is the rainy day fund had $30,000 in investment earnings. That will be moved into the general fund. So the general fund will have $30,000 more in revenue than it currently has. We're going to add Fund 555, which is the capital improvement fund for the marina. Currently, it's not split out from the Fund 550, but if you look at 540 and 545, which is the utility ones, they are split out, so we'll make it consistent. We're going to rename the other post-employment benefit fund to retiree health and stipend fund, because I think that makes it more understandable to the average person who picks up a document. The other post-employment benefit is a term of art. We don't need to have the term of art in the budget. On summary sheet 2, we're going to add a housing fund. We don't have that in the summary sheet 2. For revenues, as you know, we have $850,000 in the housing fund, so I will put the $850,000. That will create about $8,500 in investment earnings, so that would be shown. We're going to spell out acronyms like ERAF and HOPTR. ERAF is the Educational Relief Augmentation Fund. HOPTR is Homeowner Property Tax Relief. So the ERAF is a law that went into place in the early 1990s, and the HOPTR is the $7,000 that most homeowners have on their tax bill that they deduct. It's an exemption. So the homeowners take the exemption, we get the money back. As I said, we're going to combine the investment earnings from the rainy day fund to the general fund. We're going to reorder the funds so they are actually in numerical order. This is just a happenstance of as we add funds, I kind of stuck them where they best fit, but it makes more sense to actually have them in numerical order. Add business license revenue to the capital fund. We haven't shown that in the past. As a budget item, we get about $200,000 for that. We're going to rename the Parks and Recreation Fund to the Marina Fund. As we're splitting the Parks and Recreation out from the Marina, it makes no sense to call them Marina Parks and Recreation anymore. We're going to remove revenue from Fund 882 and create a separate successor agency budget. And we've already talked about the approval of the $250,000 for that budget in the past. For summary sheet 3, we're going to update for new and proposed or approved, hopefully by the time you guys on June 17th, CIPs, capital improvement projects. So what we have there is just the ones that we've done in the past, not the ones that are being proposed. And we haven't done new CIPs in a while, so I kind of lost track of doing that. We're going to remove the second closed parentheses from the debt service. For summary sheet 4, we're going to fix formatting throughout to make it more consistent. If you notice, we have lines where we don't have carried all our lines all the way across and things like that, so we just need to make it look better. We're going to remove the successor agency amount from 882 and again create the separate successor agency budget. Add a description for 2001A and 2001B bonds. All the other bonds, like if it's a Brisbane Financing Authority, we would say it's for City Hall or City Hall completion. So we'll do the same thing for the 2001A and 2001B. Once again, we'll rename the Parks and Recreation Fund to the Marina Fund. We're going to rename the OPEB fund to be consistent with whatever I call it on summary sheet 1. We will, on summary sheet 5, which is our transfer ones, we will spell out the acronym LIRA. This is the money that we transfer from the general fund to the utility fund for our low income rate assistance program. We're going to remove any extraneous numbers outside of the chart, which are used normally for checking purposes. If you look at it, we have a 0. That means everything balanced. We're going to remove that. And I think there's also potentially, 100%, which is another checking number. On the personnel allocation table, we're going to add a title to the new personnel allocation table. It was a new table this year. I was so excited about doing it, I forgot to call it something. We're going to add totals at the bottom of the final page of the new personnel allocation table, so that way people don't have to take out their calculator like I usually do to add it all up. We're going to, under the Administrative Services Director, I actually work for the successor agency 20% of the time, not 2% of the time. So we're going to add that 0. I'm going to change the Teen Center to Teen Services for our Recreation Supervisor. You'll hear a little bit more about that later when I do the Parks and Recreation budget, but the Parks and Recreation Commission is recommending we close the Teen Center, and in fact, the supervisor does more work than just work on the Teen Center. The second personnel table, I'm going to update it to read 2013/14, not 2012-2013. You kind of get a hint of where I took that from when I do that. And we're going to remove the extraneous line in the recreation section. On the detail budget pages, I've been talking about $10,000 for volunteer projects to the City Council that we were looking at adding, and in fact I had it on one version of my budget. I didn't have on my latest version of my budget, so I apologize for that. We will add that into the City Council budget. We, since Wednesday of last week, a couple of things came to light that we probably should be looking at doing this fiscal year. One is updating our personnel rules and regulations, and we would do this update through our labor attorney. This is something we have not done for a long period of time. Some of the laws have changed that we need to make sure that we're consistent with, and that would cost us about $9,000. Part of that may be, we may deal with our new city attorney. I don't know where we're going to go with that, but we'd like to add a budget item for that. And then also I was told recently that the Mission Bluefield is, I know it's going to be hard to believe, there's enough wind in there that it doesn't really keep its infield mix down all the time. So we would need to do some maintenance at Mission Bluefield, and it would cost us about $9,000 to add infield mix. Infield mix is the dirt for the infield, and we can't just get it from any place. It's got to be a special kind of dirt that we truck in. So that would be something we would add to the recreation budget. This is $28,000 in additional costs that are not in the budget, but we would also, as I said earlier, add $30,000 in new revenue. So we're no different than we were when I started this presentation. We're going to talk about potential changes in the budget based on Parks and Recreation Commission's recommendation regarding the teen activities. So if the council adopts those kinds of changes, that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommends, there would be changes to the teen services budget. Make participant information consistent in the Parks and Recreation. I'll talk about this a little bit later when I get into the Parks and Recreation budget. So it would either be average number of users per day or total number of days used. There's good arguments for both, and I can make an argument for either side of it. So I just would like to know which one the City Council would like me to use in the budget, and I, in fact, have used both, which doesn't make any sense. And then add participant data for the aquatics programs, and not for all aquatics programs. I mean, trying to come up with information for recreational swim on an average daily basis may not make a lot of sense. So probably, I'd like to get from council tonight a sense of how you would like me to show that. And then, whereas in the budget for Parks and Recreation, I show a cost per or revenues by the program, it's also very difficult for me in aquatics to show what the cost of recreational swim is. Because we do recreational swim at the same time that we do lap swim sometimes. We do lap swim at the same time we do water aerobics, or we do swim lessons. So the problem is that there's a lot of multi-use in the pool. So it's hard to say what the cost of the pool at that moment in time is going towards. So I think that's one of the things that we can talk about as I go through the recreation budget, just to give you something to look forward to later in the meeting. But those are the changes that need to be updated. There's nothing substantial from the perspective that we're not looking at changing, $500,000 here or there. A lot of it is just cleaning up some past typos and some past format issues. So I would bring that back as part of a resolution when we adopt the budget. So when you adopt the budget, we would adopt that kind of those kinds of statements, so that way it gives me the ability to make all those changes. And that would be June 17th. They're not going to be made by June 17th, I can assure you. It'll be difficult for me to do that.
So, wouldn't it be possible to just fix those individual pages in the budget? Feasible or not?
The concern I have is when I try and remove line items in an Excel spreadsheet, is it might break links. So if I break a link now, I don't know if we would have enough time to repair the link in order to get you a clean document. The problem is the budget is linked to 2 or 3 other spreadsheets outside of the budget as well. So the challenge is just trying to go through it again to make sure all the links are working.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable with those kinds of changes, I can make those changes at some point where I have more time to make sure that the budget actually works again from an Excel perspective. Some of the format stuff is easy. Some other stuff may create real problems.
Right. Gotcha.
One small item we left out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The ball fields.
And I looked at it, and actually that's included in 4003. So we have to figure out how we want to do that in Parks and Recreation. So the expenditure, the expense is in 4003. But so I'll talk about it when I get to Parks and Recreation as to what that difference is. One of the things is that in one of our Parks and Recreation, in our facilities, we show Min and BES ball fields, but we don't show a cost for it because the cost is actually being picked up in the Public Works Department 4003. So we might want to move that out of 4003 into Parks and Rec, or do something different. So that would just be, but I did look into that.
So you did find it?
I did find it.
Well, good.
So that would be a transfer?
It would be a transfer if that's what we want to do, or we can just leave it in 4003. It's either way works for me from a finance perspective, because they're both general fund costs.
I think it's probably just put an asterisk.
That could be.
To show.
Yeah, and it may be better, in the long term to break it out in Parks and Recreation too.
Yeah.
Well, if we're trying to get a more accurate picture of what all this is costing us, then it makes sense to put it where it's actually being used.
Right. I mean, that's getting more to program-based budgeting, and it's a new concept that we have this year, and that's, I'll talk more about program-based budgeting when we get to Parks and Recreation as to what the benefit of that is.
Okay.
But I'm not until later in the meeting.
You're sooner and later.
Sooner and later. But now it's the city manager's turn.
He's there. Oh, okay.
Not that I'm the city manager.
Not even aspiring?
I could say yes. It's always good to aspire. So I'll be going over some of the highlights of the budgets, the city manager's budget, the co-sponsorships, the library, and the city council's budget. So first off, with the city manager's budget, some of the highlights of this year's budget is that we're eliminating the funding of the urban forest management program. We're also looking at running the annual yard waste cleanup weekend, the same as we did last year. As you recall, we used to budget approximately $10,000 for this program to add additional staff to help out with the cleanup for our residents. Last year, we did not provide any funding for this program, and it did run pretty successfully, so we're taking a look again at running it the same way, which will save us quite a bit of cost. We're also looking at adding $5,000 for additional vegetation management in Brisbane Acres. And we're looking at an added $2,000 for other projects sponsored by the Open Space and Ecology Committee, such as informational and educational events.
And Maria, before you move on, the 2 debris boxes that are by the courtyard, where do they, what budget do they come from?
At this point, that has been something that the South San Francisco Scout
They have, so we're not paying that?
There's no additional
Okay.
cost for it.
All right.
maybe an issue.
Sure, okay, just checking.
Yeah, collecting a lot of stuff.
It's been, I've noticed
Over
that,
successful.
like, yeah, every time I go by, there's a new pile of new stuff, so,
Which I'm sure will help with our diversion numbers.
yeah. And those aren't small debris boxes, is it?
No, they are not, so.
I wonder if that's stuff that's actually, if it's actually taking care of the problem, or if it's just, people taking advantage of the situation.
I've seen myself on the weekends, some people have used it that are probably, wasn't really the intended use. But I think we've also seen some, kind of small contractors out there from time to time that have, and that's what we were trying to get at, the ones that were maybe not going to get rid of the material the way we want them to get rid of it, into a landfill operation. And so I think it has helped a little bit in that manner. It definitely demonstrates the need, I guess, in some fashion to, because there's just, those have gotten very popular.
Yes, yeah, but there has been less debris on tunnel, I have to say.
I
It seems that
think,
way.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to measure because, one weekend it's fine, and then the next weekend, you just have a horrible weekend.
I
So,
bet if we took them away, you're going to find a new deposit area.
well, yeah.
Probably.
It's one of those things where I think we just have to kind of continuously kind of rethink what we're doing, and, if that's the most effective way of doing it. It's not the nicest looking thing in front of your town either.
No.
but, I don't know.
It would be interesting to know if we had less people using the personal pickup service, that the 2 times a year that is part of your contract, because they're able to use the debris boxes.
Right. And we'll check on that and see if the
We'll see if we can get some
scavengers should
numbers
have a
on
good
that.
sense of that.
Could I ask some
Sure.
questions on the city manager budget that we have in front of us? You have that there?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I may have to refer to Stuart for
Okay.
more detail.
I just thought it'd be nice to explain a couple of things publicly. You said that we were going to be eliminating the urban forest management, but, so what has that been? What have we been doing? That's not going to be funded anymore.
Right, the urban forest management, about 4 years ago, we put $20,000 out there to remove a number of eucalyptus trees. And we've been reducing that number over each year because we've eliminated the eucalyptus trees in town that have been the biggest problems. We haven't used this money for a couple of years. So in the past, it was just a placeholder. the thought is for next year that we don't really have that same issue that we've had in the past. So just eliminate that from a budgetary perspective. If an issue comes up during the year, we would of course bring it back to council for review.
So this is really eucalyptus removal.
It was.
Yeah, right. And we still have a program for replacing street trees.
Yes, and that's in the Public Works Department.
Right, I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Right, and we also have...
The urban forest management, who knows what that means?
Right, and we also have money in the open space and ecology for the maintaining acres or doing some restoration work or some remediation work through, in the acres or other places that may affect the mountain.
Okay. And the mapping?
And the mapping.
Right. I have one other question on the office expense, also the city manager. It keeps coming down and down. Is that because of some kind of reallocation or what?
Just historical information that as we, one of the issues is that over the years, we've just been working really hard to bring down the cost of our expenses. If you look at the front page, page 33, over the years, we haven't been spending the entire amount for office expense. Our highest expense was $6,000 back in 2010, but in fiscal year 11-12, our most recent year, we only spent $1,500. So this is a matter that we only spend what we need to spend. I don't think, looking at the history, we don't need a budget $8,500. So that's the reason why we have $3,000.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, on the co-sponsorships, highlights include taking a look at increasing the budget by $11,000. This is to hopefully accommodate other co-sponsorships that may come up over the year. Last year, as you recall, we
Is your microphone on? Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Last year, some of the events that were added in include the Zippy 5K race. Live at Mission Blue, this may fluctuate based on who we get to present at those shows. The Artist Evening of Sharing, that event, depending on what we're taking a look at in terms of the program, has gone up and down in terms of what we've decided to do with the program, so we're taking a look at possibly expanding that next year. Brisbane Dance Workshop has been a very robust program, as you recall, and we're looking at continuing co-sponsoring that, and again, the $11,000 may help in terms of adding to if that program expands. And the Women's Club Shakespeare program also came up a couple years ago. It has become more of a regular event for us going forward for co-sponsorship. Any questions?
Where are we looking at in the budget on that? Oh, co-sponsorship.
co-sponsorship.
Okay.
I do have a question, Clay. Is there like they say you do a co-sponsorship, and that the entity that you're doing the co-sponsorship has the ability to actually to perhaps give money back in regards to covering costs of co-sponsorship. How would that, would just go like, you make a check and it goes back into that fund for, you can use it for
Well,
other.
this isn't really a fund, it's just a budget allocation, so anything that would come back in terms of offsetting the cost of running an event would just come back to the general fund as a revenue.
Revenue to the general fund, okay.
I mean, it's probably something that, Stuart might want to look at in terms of the program budget and capturing the costs coming back. If we ever had a lot of that happening, we really haven't had a lot of that up to this point. And we may, with some of the stuff we've been talking about with the event programming with the Economic Development Subcommittee, and we'll be talking with the full council about if we get into that in a more robust fashion where we're actually doing events and the city's participating in those and offsetting some cost with the idea of some revenue coming back, we may want to try to capture in a little more succinct way the amount of money coming back. But up until now, historically it's been dealing with nonprofits and the city absorbing some of the costs of the building setup and take down and staffing to run events and stuff, and it hasn't really been, the other or the latter.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
And on the special event, or event co-sponsorship, the recommended budget for professional services is $22,000. What would that entail?
So the professional services are things like contracting out for Beth's time when we do the artist evening of sharing. It's for having the setup for the risers. So it's just a very general catch-all kind of category. I couldn't tell you specifically. It could be for lighting. It could be for if we have to bring in somebody to do sound for a program. It could be bringing somebody in to do film, for like if I know we've done things for David Brown in the past where we've brought in a special projector, we've brought in a special screen. I mean, all those kinds of things fall into that professional services because those are professionals.
Right, but we are looking to double.
Right.
Over double our budget for this item for the year, for next year.
Right. I mean, what we're doing is we're looking to increase the budget by 11,000. I don't know where that 11,000 would be spent, so I just put the 11,000 there. I mean, it could be spent in special departmental expenses. It could be spent someplace else, but that's just the $11,000 addition to the budget that we had.
Okay, but our budget's going from 15.6 of actual expenses to almost $42,000.
Correct. So the money that is being allocated to the personnel costs, we've never allocated personnel costs to this in the past. This is a portion of Wendy's time. I talked about the change in the way that we were allocating personnel at the beginning of the last meeting, where we're trying to show more accurately where people spend their time. So this is one of the, Wendy spends a lot of time working with all of the co-sponsorship events. She does the flyers for Live at Mission Blue. If there's information that needs to go out in the city news or the City Star for co-sponsorships, it's her time that's being used. So that's what that personnel cost is. So looking at the cost of supplies and services, it's going from $20,000 budget to a $31,000 budget. And there have been years in the past, as in 07, 08, and 08, 09, where we've spent, as much as $23,000, $26,000. So it's just, it really depends on the events that we people come forward with throughout the year. And and when you look at when we get to the 12-13 actuals, it will be above $20,000 this year because we did have the Zippy race, which was something that we had not anticipated. And then there were some additional costs that we had at the Artist Evening of Sharing that we haven't had in the past based on the types of performances that we had this year that we hadn't had in the past.
Maybe even go a little bit further because, I mean, we haven't really been discussing, but at council level, but we certainly have at our economic development subcommittee is, like the community, what would you call, festival. I know the school's been talking about it, Parks and Recs have been talking about doing something collaboratively. So we're just putting it's almost like a placemaker amount of money that if we're able to pull something together or something else pops up that you don't have to go back for a supplemental appropriation. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be spent. So, there's things, I guess, that, that we're looking at that would be termed co-sponsors in the city, like sponsoring it, so.
Yeah,
we have another one coming up
Yeah.
the next week, or next couple of weeks, which is the Bullet documentary. So we're having up at Mission Blue, and I'll bring it back at the June 17th meeting, or the June 10th. I'm not sure which one I'm going to able to bring it back at. But we're doing with the Chamber of Commerce, where a group is coming into town, and the Chamber of Commerce is using Mission Blue to hold an event up there. The proceed, they're going to work, the Chamber of Commerce is working with the Lions Club to put together an event for this outside group, and the proceeds that come back would be used for something like the skateboard park. But it's we will be a co-sponsor of that event, and so therefore they get the Mission Blue for free. They will get our staff time that goes towards putting that on for free. So so there are new things that we are, that we're beginning to find people are would like to look at as a 1 or 2 year kind of experimental thing. I think that may be one of the issues that at some point we want to talk about is, do we continue to co-sponsor those kind of events on a long-term basis, such as the Zippy race, such as, if we do the bullet thing on a regular basis, do we want to continue to co-sponsor them, or do we look at the co-sponsorship more as startup money? And I'm not sure which way we're going to go with that.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point there, Stuart. I mean, doing the co-sponsorship, say, for example, like the bullet event, it provides an opportunity for an organization to raise money that then is used out in the community. So, for the bullet event, we're looking at providing the Mission Blue Center for free to the Lions Club and the Chamber of Commerce, collecting that money, and then that money that's made from that event is then put back into the community, either in something like the skateboard park or some other service that benefits us all. And in a way, it's taking the energy from the community and being able to multiply those dollars in a broader sense. So hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only other thought that I had, it seems as if it's kind of a standalone thing. And I don't know, it sort of makes sense to me that it really is a recreation activity. And maybe it ought to be in the recreation budget as programs analyzed similarly.
Sure.
And maybe the Parks and Rec Commission want to weigh in on these things. And say, okay, if we recommend this, or such and such amount is appropriate to spend, maybe not.
I think that's with the way that we're making the change in the budget, with the splitting the Parks and Recreation up from the Marina, that makes more sense. I think in the past, there may have been a concern about, are we using Marina funds to offset some nonprofit or something like that? So it may now that we've put the recreation completely in the general fund, we can look at doing that. And if that's one of the changes you'd like me to make to the budget, I can give it a new Parks and Recreation number, and I can make that change if that's the council's desire. Because it's all coming, from my perspective as the finance person, it's all coming from the same pocket. Mm-hmm. So it's wherever you would like to see that fall would be okay with me.
From my point of view, it gives the commission a chance to weigh in on these things. Which seems
I think there are certain things that we do on a very regular basis that, maybe the commission doesn't need to have that same weighing in, but maybe for new events,
right,
that might make sense. And, if they're more recreational oriented or cultural oriented, that makes sense. If we're doing something like the bullet thing, it maybe not, because that's a different kind of event entirely from a recreational event. So I guess those are the questions that we need to look at.
And a broader definition of recreation, it certainly fits.
And I'm not sure that, I think it should be more at the council's discretion or the city's discretion than Parks and Rec as far as event co-sponsorship.
Well, no, we have to do the actual co-sponsorship, but I'm just thinking about recommendations, advice. But it actually, if we want to do the co-sponsorship because we're putting up the dough, then that has to be done at the council level. No question about it.
Right.
Yeah, I was just giving Stuart a bad time about that only because historically, that's where we did have it in the budget in Parks and Recreation, and the previous city council said, no, we don't want it there. So that's the reason I was given a bad time about that.
Yeah.
So I think from the staff's perspective, that's probably the most appropriate place for it to be.
Right.
Couldn't have been my suggestion.
I'm not going to name names.
So I would add that to the list of changes that I'll bring back at the adoption, is to renumber event co-sponsorship. So it falls in the 5,000 series of departments. And then Maria won't have to explain it next year.
Yeah. I don't care one way or the other. Sounds good to me. All the same pot.
Right.
It's still money we're spending.
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah, for sure. But we have the ultimate control over that, for sure.
and this is I'm assuming the overview where we'll have a chance to
Oh, yeah,
talk about specifics and where we're at.
right. Go ahead.
Okay. On to the library.
Okay.
There are no changes to the budget for the library. As you know, the funding that we provide is part of our, being part of the San Mateo County Library System Joint Power Authority. The funding that we do provide allows us to add 3 additional service hours, as well as waive book hold fees for our residents. One thing we do want to note is that the library exploring the possibility of changing some hours around from the evening to mornings, possibly shifting their hours so that it opens a little bit early, possibly 11 o'clock instead of noon, to accommodate some of the residents' requests.
And so that would be opening earlier and closing earlier.
Correct. So instead of noon to 8, it would be 11 to 7, and they're still investigating that at this time. But that's, it won't change the number of service hours we have, we'll just adjust where they are.
Yeah, and we'll be bringing that back to the council when they're ready to make an actual proposal.
Right.
Sure, makes sense.
Was that, again, one of those kind of things that you need to know number of people at those different times and which set of hours serves the most people?
Right, and I think that's what they're trying to aim at, but and there's some rationale for what they're looking at, but I think it probably would be good to air it out at a council meeting and let the community weigh in on that if there's any, group or individual who has concern over it.
And lastly, with the city council's budget, the highlights on that one is that you'll notice that there's an additional cost in the flexible benefit. This is because currently it's budgeted for, it was previously budgeted at cost for the current council members, and I believe our previous council member who was at a single level health rate. This is taking into account in case the incoming council member in the fall needs benefits at a family rate, so that's why there's a higher amount on there. It's also including a budget for about $10,000 for possible volunteer projects that the council may decide to pursue next year.
And Maria, the volunteer projects would be something like Rebuilding Together. Is that, yeah?
It could easily be that, or any number of things where we have some amount of city staff time that we need to spend on it. And I'm not talking about administrative or management staff time. I'm talking about when we have public works guys out doing different things and stuff like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, that's good to get that clear. Okay.
You mean real work? No, you mean real work?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Councilmember, real work.
Yeah. Like some of the work
Sorry.
that the public works guys helped with in regards to the community center garden project. And so, it'd be nice to be able to use their services sometimes when appropriate, and not have it be coming out of public works budget.
Okay, and with that, I will pass it on to our city clerk.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm presenting the City Clerk's budget, which is essentially the same except for two items. There's $5,000 added to the budget this year for the upcoming election in November, and a part of that may be a measure on the ballot for a business license tax on the tank farm. So I've increased our election budget from the typical $4,000 to $5,000 to accommodate publication of arguments and rebuttals. And the other change would be that I did not budget for a Citizens Academy this year. We, as you are aware, the Baylands DEIR is going to be published soon, and there's a citizens group of about 20 to 30 citizens, which I'm working with, and that takes a lot of time, and a lot of our citizens will be focused on that issue rather than generalization of an academy, so maybe we'll do that next year. So, and those are the only things that are changes, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, looks fine to us.
Okay, that was easy. Thank you.
Can I ask a question here before we do, John, before we do community development? I know we have a couple Park and Rec commissioners here, and I don't know if they want to stay for the whole meeting, or if we can kind of divert and do Parks and Rec, because that's a pretty big budget. And
How about if I do Parks and Rec right after John? I'll move up to the top of my stuff.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you're going to have a lot of time, spend a lot of time with John,
Okay.
but you would be spending a lot of time with Parks.
If that's okay with the council?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, John.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. Community development budget, again, as you're aware, community development is primarily planning and the building function. I just want to highlight a couple of items that are on the screen before you. The first item has actually been rolled over from previous years, $75,000 for the general plan update assistance. As you're all aware, that process started a number of years ago. Basically, it was put on hold to update the city's general plan, waiting for the Baylands EIR, expecting that that would provide a lot of the technical information that would support a city's general plan update. Again, with the pending publication of that EIR, we would hope to be able to move forward this fiscal year. But the Baylands EIR won't provide all the technical information required to provide for the general plan update. So that's a supplemental budget to allow for the environmental document for the general plan in its entirety. $10,000 for the Crocker Park charrette, which is activity that has sort of two functions. One is to help facilitate some of the rezoning of the mixed-use site next to the village, Brisbane Village, as required under the housing element. It also helps facilitate some of the discussions that were held by the Economic Development Subcommittee in terms of reimagining or re-envisioning Crocker Park as a whole. So it's actually kind of a double duty, and we feel that we'll get more than $10,000 worth of volunteer services from Urban Land Institute as part of that process. I think it's really good investment of city resources.
Yeah, and that's about $9,000 less than the
AIA,
the other
AIA,
folks
yes.
we're going to charge.
Right.
All right.
American Institute of Architects.
And then the last item I'd point out is an additional $3,000 targeted for Planning Commission training. That would provide, depending on whether the training sessions are in Southern California or Northern California, could allow possibly 2 additional commissioners. Right now, we've been able to send 1 per year if it's away, and 2 if it's local. Hopefully, we can increase that. So I'd like to get everyone the opportunity to get to a session every other year with the commission. So
And that runs about $3,000 per person?
No, that would include staff. Staff goes to a session. We have a senior planner, myself, and we go to different events necessarily, but that would allow for a number of staff and commissioners to attend. But yeah, additional 3,000 should allow for at least 2 if they're away, maybe 3 if they're local. And then there are other events that are one-time daily, like a workshop, maybe it's $250 for a one-day workshop or something that provide the opportunity for commissioners to attend, as well as as a longer league conference or APA state conference. So with that, I'd entertain any questions you might have.
If I may, John. So right now we've had a pretty consistent group of planning commissioners. Have all of them attended at least once the league conference? Yes, this was we got our newest commissioner who was not able to attend last year did get to it was League of Cities down in Pasadena this spring. Okay, and then the next conference will be in Monterey? I'm not sure. I believe so. We'd also give them the opportunity of APA state conference, which is in Visalia, I believe. Neither terribly local, so I would rotate again who hasn't gone the longest, see what their options are. They're seasonally different, one's in fall, one's in spring, so see what fits with everybody's schedule and their interest. Sure. I'm just thinking, with the Monterey one, people can drive. Pasadena, I'm not going to drive. You could probably save on one night's accommodation in Monterey. Absolutely. So just, I don't know if this is something for the council. I think it's a good idea for the Planning Commission to go to the league conference, but I would prefer that they go to the one that's in Northern California rather than going down the one that's in Southern California, and have more commissioners go. Yeah, that's certainly something you could almost budget on a bi-yearly then, because obviously they alternate, and so have a smaller budget on the off year when it's maybe just for one-day events locally versus for more commissioners on a biannual when it's up in Northern California. That's an option. That's right. We have 7 commissioners. We could say every other year. Actually, we only have 5 still. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
You should remember that.
I should remember that. Then we could do something like every other year, 2 commissioners, we budget the league conference, and then 3 commissioners, the next Monterey, conference, or the next Northern California conference. So then that might. Yeah, it's just a matter of then they get there every 4 years. If that's, a cycle that everyone's comfortable with, that's fine. Yeah.
Is that what you recommend?
Or you think more, John?
The only problem with if for some reason someone can't go when it is in Northern California, then that does tend to add some time, and do they get a little stale? I prefer not to. I found I have better success if there's some flexibility with the commissioners, because again, the newest commissioner, we actually did have her scheduled for last year when it was local, but something came up, a family situation, and I think it was to her benefit to be there, not wait a whole nother year given where we are in planning cycles and the Baylands and everything. But,
sure. Just trying to, of course you want to have flexibility, but you also want to be able to have some predictability on your costs.
Maximize your.
You're right. The amount of benefit that a commissioner would get from the Monterey conference or the Pasadena conference or Southern California, San Diego sometimes, it's going to be the same. But the cost to the city is much greater when it's in Southern California as opposed to Northern California.
Understand.
Of course.
I have a couple of questions. Looking at the page of all the detail numbers in the budget.
Is that page 49?
Page 49. There's a switch from last year to this year. Please explain so we're all clear. There was last year there was 32,000 plus in part-time salaries, and that's disappeared. And that amount seems to now be in full-time salaries. So we just wanted to speak to that.
Right. This is one of those cleanup items that I'm going to need to do at some point. The way I budgeted salaries this year, the spreadsheet comes down, dropped to a single number. So there's still, if you look at the cover sheet for personnel allocations, there's still a half-time person allocated. for office support, but because of the way that the Excel spreadsheet works, it just makes it difficult to break it out between part-time and full-time employees. And it's, this is a conversation I think I had last week, is in order to get the best information to you at this time, I wasn't able to show the split between what was part-time and what was full-time salaries. And it becomes even more difficult as we start talking about splitting people up into many different proportions. Whether, is 50% of my time in finance a part-time question, or is it a full-time person? I mean, it becomes more difficult. So really what I need to do is collapse part-times and full-time into a single salary line item. I think that might make the most sense. I know we had this conversation at the finance subcommittee as well. It's just, it's a matter of semantics that as we were making changes for the program-based budget, I didn't catch up to it on the forms.
Okay. I
apologize.
No, I just wanted, because other people looking at this might have a similar question, so I
Right.
thought it'd be better to.
Right, and it may be better, when I do the final budget, is to collapse salaries, part-time, the 51101 and the 51201 into just a salaries line item throughout all the years. And that might just make it an easier read going forward.
Okay. Okay, now I'd like to ask about professional services, same page. Which is, over $300,000. And kind of two aspects of that. Be interesting for you to sort of, what's all the components there? And then two, how much of it is reimbursed?
I'll answer the first component. Probably about 140,000 of that relates to building, plan check, and inspection services, as well as the fire inspection function of building permits. The remainder of that is primarily some dollars for our, I'm not steward about Tim's time, how it's allocated on here. I'm not sure if that was under planning assistance or that
Right.
the salaries.
No, it's still in the planning assistance.
Okay, that would be a half-time, basically, although his primary function is trying to finish up some of the housing element implementation steps that are, amendments that are still pending. So that's a significant allocation of that time. And then we have some smaller budget for if you need technical assistance for reviewing an outside agency's environmental document or planning project, and we're looking for peer review, so those kind of technical services. That's probably in the order of less than $20,000 for that. So the bulk of it is in building, plan check and inspection, fire and CSG's plan check function.
But if you said that's about 150,000, the total is 300,000.
Well, then Tim would be another 50.
So he's in there?
So page 52 shows the breakout detail of this.
Yeah. Guess how the general plan too.
I mean, the general plan is $75,000.
$75,000 of the general plan.
And spend that
review,
yesterday.
which we didn't spend.
Yeah.
And then, again, you need the technical assistance, outside legal counsel if needed. So that's the bulk of it.
Now, on the plan check and building inspection fees, do the planning fees that are charged to people who are using this service get charged back and offset to this account? Or does that go into the general fund?
It just goes into into revenue. So the city's budget is very much bifurcated between revenues and expenditures. Where we will get revenues for a number of different items, and we never really show how that offsets any of our expenditures. We get money for plan checks, we get money for engineering services, and it shows as a revenue in summary sheet 2, but it doesn't show on any of these pages. Business licenses would be another one of those things where it takes us staff time to do it, but we don't show that as an offset, the revenue as an offset to cost. So in summary sheet 2, we have a revenue item for plan check and other items for the planning department. And I think we're going to get more into this conversation as we get into Parks and Recreation.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you, but my general understanding is that any cost that we get from CSG for those services, we basically charge out to the user. So it, in the end of the day or the end of the year, it should basically wash out in terms of that cost.
Correct. So we have $115,000 in projected revenues for plan checks. In fiscal year 11-12, we received $143,000. So I mean, we do, but there is offsetting costs there. It's just, the way that the budget, the budget is set up as, there's a revenue portion of a budget and an expenditure portion of the budget.
Yeah, and, we've been trying to move over time to bringing those closer together, especially when it makes a lot of sense to juxtapose, okay, so we're spending this amount of money, but most of it we're getting reimbursed for. And so that should be noted eventually.
Right.
And now I would think that maybe just even a footnote or an asterisk or something in the further explanation here might just do the job, because we're not ready to change all the accounting system around, but that's coming later. But I think it is important to note that this isn't something that's just going out that isn't coming back in, because it is coming back in.
Correct.
Just like the same, all the expenditures, reviewing all the things for the Baylands. I mean, you're going to see a lot of expenditures there, but it's reimbursed. And so, I think that's important for people to understand that it's just not going out. There are a lot of things that are actually, paid for through fees or reimbursement or what have you.
Well, that's true in most of the departments.
Exactly.
I mean, recreation especially, and the marina,
Right.
the enterprise funds, I mean, all that is, but we're not there yet.
And we're not there yet.
So, I mean,
But you understand that we want to kind of move in that direction so we can see that juxtaposition rather than it being so totally separated. You can't even see the connection between.
Correct. And I think, as when we talk about Parks and Recreation, we'll see the beginnings of that, and we can talk more about, what other departments you'd want to see that for, and maybe we could talk about that in the Finance Subcommittee.
Right. The only other comment on what you have provided here is you're talking about reviewing EIRs, and you mentioned most notably the Caltrain electrification, and I was thinking there probably will be some others that we'll want to be reviewing as well, like the high-speed rail and like what's happening right over in San Francisco, that we'll be doing probably revisions to EIRs and so forth, that we'll want to weigh in on as well. So I just wanted to be sure that we're in agreement that that's all within the venue of concern that we're talking about here.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Caltrain is the only one that there's an active NOP, notice of preparation, so we'd expect to see that document. But any other projects that are within our sphere of interest, we would certainly, like we do, would expect to review and comment on it, bring comments back to the council if warranted for formal public comment. And whatever services we need to make, comments that protect the city's interests, that's the kind of consulting services we'd be looking for.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we're fine. Thank you, John. So Stuart, before you start a lot of complicated stuff that you now have, I had a question from the audience that I know you can answer quickly. So she's still here. We have been talking about the possibility of doing some paving at the overflow parking for the Mission Blue. That's been discussed anyway. And the question was, if that were to become a part of the budget, where would that be?
I'll try to answer, because I'm not sure how much Stuart's been involved in this. So if we were to put that in the budget, I think we would probably put it in the capital budget.
Capital budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
possibly Public Works, but it probably makes more sense in the capital budget.
Okay. Answer the question? Okay.
So I'll do Parks and Recreation first, because you asked me to.
Go ahead.
You said this is going to be a fairly,
It could be, because we changed the way that the Parks and Recreation Department has done their budget, so I'd like to go more in depth than that.
okay. Just through the
wanna
mayor,
take a
I would
break?
like to take a break fairly
Take a little-
soon.
Or do you want to do
So-
that before we start here?
That's why I was asking him what his time frame was.
Okay. Because this probably be the pretty
This will
biggest part.
probably be the biggest,
biggest.
the longest one for
Maybe this is
tonight.
a good time.
Focused.
Yeah. Good time to take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.